Anyway, hello, this is your story time. Story time for this week. Apologies for not dropping in yesterday. Now, here's the wonderful thing. Where was I? Why was I not in with you doing Sacred Crone story time? Crones are juicy. Well, yesterday I was visiting with a job agency, a recruiter, and particularly I was talking with them because they specialize in placements with people who have either chronic illnesses or disabilities. Now, here's the thing. Yes, I'm in my startup. I'm in this business with yourselves. I am trying to get my mentoring business off the ground and financial. It's not there yet, but it will be as I learn about how to navigate the life after 40, navigate what it looks like when the first half of your adulthood may not have gone according to plan. For myself, it was 2 abusive marriages. It was being run over at 100 kilometers an hour and sustaining a life-altering brain injury at the age of 28. It meant, for me at least, that as far as career development and financial wealth generation and all that stuff, all those markers of successful adulting, well, didn't happen or struggled to happen. Halfway happened. And all along the way, I realized that I had been endeavoring to not be a victim of everything and not get caught in that kind of thinking that, stuff worries me, life is crap and all that sort of stuff. What happened was that I pretty much for the last 21 years since the head injury, have almost denied that it happened. I mean, sometimes I couldn't completely deny it. I mean, with all the various medical and therapeutic, occupational therapy kind of activities that I needed over the years to go from prior to head injury being able to study multiple courses, run a job, get out and about, be spontaneous, do stuff in my early 20s, to not being able to make a cup of tea or coffee and hold a conversation at the same time without making some kind of error, for a good 6 or 7 years post head injury, and then bit by bit, what I did over the 20 years is I've learned, I've studied, I've gone to uni, I've done multiple degrees, I've gained multiple certifications in my professional skills. In this last 2 years, not only have I been extending the certifications and the training in my therapeutic skills, but I've also been doing a steep learning curve on marketing and building courses and online coaching and all the rest of it, and trying to get a business started. And what I realized was, partly because most of the people I've been dealing with in this space have been the coaches that coach coaches. They're all, well, if you're not professionally in this circle, then you may not be aware of the coaches that coach coaches and consultants. But that seems to be the goldfish bowl I'm swimming around in. So far more than calling in my ideal 40 plus vibrant woman who just wants to reinvent her life post 40, having, maybe had a marriage or two that didn't work, or in a marriage still that might be stale and the kids have grown up, or maybe she chose not to have kids. And, we make the choices, we make the decisions, and we take one step forward, one after the other in our life. And often it feels like we've just gotten on this kind of train and it's just taken us from one point to the other. And unless you stop for a moment and actually reflect and look back, the only reason to look back in your life is to see how far you've come. It's not to find the answers. The answers are not found in the past, but it does help to stop every so often and actually take a look back and go, well, look at the journey. Look at the journey you've taken, the roads you've gone on, the stops you've made along the way, and just take it in and understand where it's gotten you to here. And I realized that one of the things that I had done, because I had so valiantly tried to not be injured and not be impacted by the absolutely life-altering impact of a major head injury, I pretty much spent my adult life fighting any attempt at accommodating it in the way of acknowledging it. It was always about pushing through it, getting over it, ignoring it, not admitting to myself, let alone the rest of the world, that this is what I'm dealing with. I certainly never wanted to acknowledge it out there in the professional space. So no, I never, put myself in the category of having a disability or having any issue. I certainly never acknowledged that to recruiters or employers. So I never asked for the dispensations, the compensations, the arrangements that can come in place, because largely, I just felt the pressure out there that I'm sure a lot of us do, to be better than normal, And so yesterday, what I actually did was speak with an agency, because I'm still looking at opportunities out there, along with getting my business going, for other opportunities of some salaried work. Particularly, I'm looking for that in the humanitarian sector. I really, really want to be working in the space of supporting, advocating and supporting women leaving domestic violence, because of course I've done it twice. And looking at ways of being able to do that with support, actually acknowledging that asking for support, asking for help, acknowledging one's limits is not the same as being caught up in victim mode or woe is me. And actually, part of being a crone, part of being in our wisdom and learning as we mature and listening to our inner voice and courageously stepping forward, part of that. And so having the joy that I keep talking about isn't the 10K months. It's not the sipping cocktails in some fancy place. It's not the killer 20-year-old body. It's not any of those things. It's not the perfect partner. It's none of it. I mean, they may come, whatever comes. But the joy that I'm talking about, and I realize that I've been not focused on it as much, because I have been sort of swept along by the coaches that coach coaches in business and abundance and all the rest of it. And they're often rather only marker of success is the 10K plus month, the X $1 million mark, the sold out this, the sold out that, the what have you. And of course, they are a marker of movement and flow. And of course, movement and flow shows itself in all its energetic forms when we finally allow ourselves to acknowledge where we're at. Acknowledge where we're at without getting caught up in a whole big story around what that actually means. So for me, not acknowledging earlier on and up until really yesterday, not mouthing out loud that, in fact, yes, that head injury had a huge impact on my life and my ability to sort of function. And though absolutely I probably am more high functioning than most people who've never had a head injury, I acknowledge that. Lucky, you know, I was blessed with, you know, ambition and intellect and fighting spirit. So I absolutely acknowledge that there are others walking around who haven't had any head injury and probably are not quite as capable. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether there is, and I mean, we're told quite often, I don't know, out there in different ways that, oh, well, you know, don't worry about your problems. Look at other people. There are worse off people than you. And absolutely there are. There are people out there in the world, they're in war-torn countries that have no food, that are being assaulted right this minute, have crippling illnesses, are at death's door, have a gun to their head. Absolutely. Living in famine, living in absolute abject terror. Absolutely. And so, yes, there are so many people worse off than me in this world. Absolutely. And I've lived by acknowledging that through my life. But the thing is, other people's suffering does not negate yours and your difficulties. And I didn't really cotton on to that one. I didn't really acknowledge that one. If I started to acknowledge that I was having a difficulty, say, for instance, thinking my way through a grocery list, or finding myself maybe finally starting to do some freelancing or in a full-time job, but just not being able to do as much as the person next to me, and wondering, well, why are they able to do this and also have a social life and also do volunteering and also run a residual income and also. And I'm got to say, I've found that running my business, I look out at other people seemingly achieving 1,000,001 things and running 1,000,001 different programs and services, and they're doing this and they're doing that and they're doing the other thing, and I'm wondering, well, why not? Why is that not happening for me? And I finally was able to actually acknowledge, well, it's not happening fully to the same speed or the same efficacy as other people. Well, we don't know what other people are doing. I don't know what other people are doing. And it doesn't matter what other people are doing. For me, absolutely, some of it has been a lack of capital. Some of it has been, a large bit of it has been my inability to ask for help. Because I've had this story that I've had to prove to me, apparently, and believing that I had to prove it to the world, that I was not, that I hadn't lost from this head injury, that I could keep pushing through and be better than Ben-Hur, so to speak, bigger than Ben-Hur, they say, as the saying goes, and not be vulnerable. And then in this coaching space, the general air out there of success is one of, well, you're successful and you're in flow and you're in abundance and all the rest of it. If you've got the dollars coming in and the hugely successful business and the 10,000 plus, you know, followers in your group or platform or what have you. And they are markers of success, no doubt. I'm not denying they are. But joyfulness, I'm not a business coach. I'm not claiming to even suggest anything like that. And realizing that my transformation, the story of transformation, what I support in, what I help in with women over 40, has nothing to do with business success necessarily. It may be a byproduct, whatever, if that's what you want, but that's not actually what I'm offering or selling or here to service. I'm here to show you that joy is not dependent on the stuff and the outside world and the things that happen. And in fact, stuff may look troubling. Stuff in life may still be difficult. It may never not be difficult. And in fact, I probably think this human physical existence is marked with difficulty and will always have moments of difficulty. Change is loss. So this is it. Even down to loss of our loved ones, but change is a form of loss. Change alone, if that's all that you're dealing with in this physical existence, that is a level of suffering. But we have trials, we have tests. That's a given. It's not about trying to remove them. It's not about even trying to beat them or overcome them or anything, really. I was realizing that as this last year or so of my deepening awareness and of the insights that have been coming from the inside out paradigm that I'm trained in, that I personally have journeyed through, is that when we're stuck in that story in our head of how things should be and what it should look like, and all the story then about the story that we tell ourselves, we shackle ourselves. They're like chains that are weighing us down. And there have been times where, yeah, I realized that I've had chains around my ankles and wrists and arms and shoulders, and it's been pulling me down. And part of the suffering has been misunderstanding how to release myself from those chains. Part of it has been thinking that I had to look outside in some quest for a key out there, either in successful income or good relationships or a successful career or whatever it is, that those were the keys that would unlock all these chains. But what I understand now is that it's not even necessarily the need to get rid of the chains. The chains aren't what's holding me down. It's the story I tell myself of them. And the minute I realize that my stories are, the stories are what imprison me, the stories are what lock me in place and stop me from flowing forward, then the chains just release themselves. The locks just open. I don't actually have to do anything. It's not about tools and tricks. It's not about changing life circumstances. It's about simply sitting still long enough to shed some light on what you're telling yourself about where you're at. It is about looking back every so often and looking at where you've come from, but not to find the answers there. The answers aren't there. And so, yeah, that's sort of kind of been where I was at yesterday, and also pondering on that got me in a little bit late today to continue on with our Sacred Crone story time. And just realizing that, yeah, I am here to serve. And indeed, this is a business. I have offers. I keep having wonderful insights about wonderful programs. I've got this membership that I'm just dying to get filled and started, the Crones Collective, Cackling Crones Collective, because that's the whole point of being in your crone wisdom and letting go of all the stories and understanding and trusting that whatever is unfolding for you now, you can move through and move with, and that it's never too late. It's never too late. So yeah, I've been sitting with 21 years of ignoring an aspect of my life that I could well have asked for help in. And instead I had a story about what that meant to ask for help in and to acknowledge the truth about. That somehow I had to look perfect. I had to look super functional, more functional than the functioning, so to speak. And to dare acknowledge that I sit here today and I acknowledge right now that the first 21 years of my adulthood were marked with a lot of obstacles to the kind of, financial, career, material success that our society considers successful. And that's despite, yes, coming from the fact that I come from a country that's fairly okay, and I came from a family background that was, well, interestingly, but controlling over the money. So funnily enough, I grew up within the trappings of what looked of wealth, but didn't have access to it. Had to beg for the basics within that. So it was kind of a bit of a mind fuck, really. It's taken me this long to realize that, and go, yeah. And that was probably another reason why I didn't actually acknowledge and ask for the help that I needed along the way. Because I've always had this story in the back of my head that, well, no, you come from a wealthy background. You've got everything that opens and shuts, and, so you don't get to ask for help. But that's not really the truth. I mean, it's only partly the truth, and certainly got nothing to do with my legitimacy to ask for help and to own it. Now, part of asking for help is not about complaining. We were talking about that last week in story time, that Crones don't whine, they don't complain. But asking for help and acknowledging your frailty, that's humility. That takes courage. And when you actually courageously acknowledge that you are not perfect, that life does not need to look Instagram perfect and have everything opening and shutting and working perfectly for you to be happy. And this is what I'm here to tell you. I'm sitting here with as much uncertainty about my financial business future as I did 2 years ago. Probably more so, because 2 years ago I still had some of my savings from the compensation from being run over that was held on to for years and years and years. So in some ways, probably worse. I have more expenses. I've been investing in myself and my growth and my business hugely this year, hugely. And this is what we need to do. We need to do that. We need to prioritize ourselves. We need to understand that if we truly want to be free of the chains that we put on ourselves that stop us from being present in our lives and appreciating it, warts and all, difficulties and all, crappy people and all. It's not about cutting those people out. It's not about changing the outside world. It's not even necessarily about actively doing stuff to change yourself. It's about just simply being able to stand still for a moment and look at yourself and your life with the eyes of loving kindness and compassion and forgiveness and humility, understanding that the universe, the divine, everything, ourselves, our inner true nature is joy. Our inner true nature is indeed abundance. And it's only that we lose sight of it through all the storytelling that we have been going through and preventing ourselves from appreciating. And part of that is the asking for help when we need it. Part of that is owning that even if your life is not particularly shiny looking, it does not mean that you that you're a failure, or that you are somehow, I don't know, not flowing. It's almost like, I don't know, it feels amongst some in this manifesting law of attraction space that if things aren't absolutely flowing and abundant and all the rest of it, then somehow you're doing it wrong, or that, I know, it's just another failure to add to your kit of failures. And it just doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. You can be in touch lovingly with yourself and in the present moment, and that present moment may actually be difficult. And the joy is not because the present moment has changed in its quality. The joy that I'm talking about is the joy that you have that comes from, it's not a Pollyanna active, ha ha, he, smiley white, laughing in the face of danger kind of stuff. It's this contentment. And fear is still going to come up, believe me, don't worry. Yesterday, the day before yesterday, fear came up. I was having thinking. I was having a lot of thinking. Oh crap, I don't want to be caught in this or that, a particular way of doing things was unfolding, a particular pathway was unfolding, and I was panicking ahead of time about it, even though it hadn't unfolded. And even though I had no idea what it would look like, I was resisting and I was getting really caught in my head. But once I realized that I was getting caught in my head and was telling myself a story that wasn't even true because it hadn't happened, and I'm not psychic and I don't know the future, it all fell away. And so what that means is that I'm actually able to show up when that thing is actually honestly happening in that moment. It means that you're able to show up. And so that's part and parcel really of what my transformation is all about for myself and for you as Crones. It's being about able to face the life that you have right now, not with the purpose of looking at it to change it or the people to make life better, but to be able to become within yourself so that when the present moment arrives for you to respond, you're able to respond not from the story, not from the ego logic thinking and all the rest of it, but from your direct tapping into the universal wisdom, universal mind, the divine, the source, whatever you want to call it. We all have immediate access to it. And so you get to do that. You get to live your life in the present moment from that space. And the more that we do that, that's where the joy is. And it's not about shiny exteriors. So I can be joyful right now, even though, yeah, my business hasn't launched yet as a financial endeavor. I haven't got all the clients in my program and the beta program yet, which is so soon to come out. I struggle on days. Some days I don't feel like writing a transformational post. Some days I'm tired and I realize what that is now. It is still a hangover with the brain injury. It's still that. So I can be kinder to myself and go, well, someone else might be able to do 1,000,001 things in one day and achieve a lot with or without a team of people. But that's okay if I can't. That's okay if my journey is slower than somebody else's, and it's okay for you as well. And so this notion that when you're aligned and in your wisdom and showing up in your life, this notion that it's all suddenly going to speedily result in all these riches and stuff happening immediately, not necessarily. It can, but not necessarily. It's just another story. It's just another story that we tell ourselves that hold ourselves back from just being in the moment. That's all that we need to do, is just be in the present moment. And so I am in the present moment with you now. I am in the present with you now. I hadn't had this planned. I'm just on and I'm telling you where things are at and just being vulnerable and sharing that with you and going, well, so the joy that I'm about, that I'm promoting is not the Instagram perfect life. And I realize that I've been sucked in with that a little bit and was struggling with that. And when coaches that coach coaches talk about results driven and marketing from results and messaging from results, I was struggling with that because, well, I haven't had the sold out beta launch or a second or third launch. I haven't yet had too many opportunities in the one-on-one with clients. And I'm certainly am not showing that Instagram perfect life in my own space. And then I realized, but that's not the joy I'm talking about. Your life may not change outwardly. You may still, by the end of the six weeks in the group program that I'm looking at launching, it's hopefully the aim of the game is that I'm going to be doing a masterclass on appreciating your life, the art of appreciation. So I want to do that masterclass. There will be a free masterclass in the next couple of weeks that will come out. Be an interactive masterclass in Zoom. It will be streamed live, maybe into the group or maybe onto the event page that will be attached to this. Haven't made my mind up on that one yet. But to participate and for bonuses, come in and join me live in that. You'll have, for those who join me live in the Zoom, they'll also get a free reading, a free wisdom card lesson as well. Because I love bringing in all the different tools and doing the different things. I just love it. But from that masterclass, then I will start also be pushing and promoting and talking about and entering the sales period for the 6-week program, the 6-week Awaken Your Sacred Crone, Awaken the Joy Within, Embrace Your Sacred Crone program. That has been my baby since February, that I have been building on and nurturing and looking at how I had the model, I had the theory, I've had my own personal journey through it, but what's been happening since February is looking at how I'm bringing that transformation about, how I go from without the tools, without having tools, because the whole thing with the inside out paradigm way of living is it's not about doing. It's not like NLP. It's not like cognitive behavioral therapy. It's not like any of those things. It's simply awareness. Awareness, flipping the switch, turning on the light dispels all the shadows. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to grab a broom. You don't have to start banging drums and smudging this and doing whatever to get rid of the shadows. All you do is turn on the light. And the interesting thing is the light switch is within us. We are internally lit. And it's only the fact that we get caught up in the stories in our head that kind of the light is, I guess, obstructed, So it's not even about doing anything like a technique to turn on that light. It's more about just allowing the stories to fall away like the veils that they are, and allow the inner light that's already there to reveal itself. But what I have learned along the way through doing fabulous 3 principles foundational 6-week, 3-month program was absolutely brilliant, and also doing Michael Neal's fabulous Create the Impossible program, is that I've understood a little bit more fine-tuning that though there is no doing within the inside out paradigm, you don't have to do anything to reach insight, to have the transformations. So it's not about hacking through past thinking or stories and analyzing them and dismantling them and You're not controlling what you're thinking. You're not trying to stop what you're thinking. You're not managing your emotions. You're not changing the outside world and moving the chess pieces around the board so they play a different game or anything. It's not like that. But that doesn't mean that you sit in the corner and don't do. So it's a way of doing. It's showing up in the doing. You can do vision. You can create a vision board. You can write a dream day journal. You can meditate. You can dance. You can sing. You can work with tarot cards and wisdom cards and oracles and that. That's oracles. I prefer oracles. It's not about foretelling the future or divination. It's in that sense. It's just simply about using, making use of different implements to help you come back into the voice that's already there. So it's the understanding that yoga and meditation and dancing and singing and oracle cards and mantras and all the rest of it that's out there, they're not putting anything in you. They are not putting insight into you. You don't actually need them in a kind of superstitious sense in order to have insight. It's not like, oh, well, I didn't do my yoga today, so there goes my wisdom. No. Wisdom is there. It's there. It's this moment. That's a moment. Here's the next moment. Your wisdom is in that. It's already there. You don't actually have to do anything with that moment to manipulate it in any shape, way, or form for that wisdom. But what these methodologies, all the different methodologies do help, I guess, with is if we have been so caught up in the story in our head and our logic and the ego, we've never had a moment to actually taste what it is to be an observer of the stream of thinking that we have. If we're still really locked into embodying the story in our head as being reality, then these tools like meditation and yoga and deep breathing and all the rest of it, they do help us to create some space. It's not giving us the intuition, it's not giving us anything that isn't already there, but they create the space. So what I've been doing over the last few weeks is working out how I can bring in, weave into this program those space-giving opportunities, without it looking like a tool that you have to do in order to get something. And that's been an interesting journey for me, both theoretically as well as energetically, how to do that. Because it's not NLP, it's not cognitive behavioral therapy, it's none of those other kinds of ways of modalities of change, or as I say, healing. Again, nothing's broken. You're not broken. I'm not broken. All those things that happened in the stories that I told myself of them, I'm not broken. Because the I that is not broken is not the ego. It's not even the physical body that's walked through this world. Though I do realize I've been quite disconnected from it. So that's been also part of the wisdom journey, at least for me, is embodiment. Is taking all the aspects of me and bringing it all into this physical presence that is this body, loving it as it is in the shape that it is, while nurturing it, and rooting myself in the present moment, anchoring myself. Aussie's rooting means to fuck, so we might say anchoring myself in the present moment, and actually being in the body, in the present moment, in that moment, as a wisdom being. That's the final frontier, at least for me in my journey, that I'm enjoying working with. So that's kind of where I'm at. This is where I'm at with what I want to do with you. And the reason this is just so important, it's important to me and what I'm just knowing this is important for you all out there is because I see in the conversations, I see in the problems that are mentioned, they're problems of ill health and pain, they're problems of rebuilding after divorces. Me, it's been divorce number 2. And the second divorce was only a few years ago. Yeah, 2016, I came back to the country after that marriage. I was in that marriage for 2 and a bit years. In that 2 and a bit years, I had 2 miscarriages, and just acute illness from being in Pakistan, and two miscarriages, and abuse of every shape, way, or form, and came limping back to Australia in 2016, licking my wounds. Ashamed that I'd blown up my life between, at 40 odd, blowing up my life between marriages that I'd had actually built up for myself between, after the first marriage, and rebuilding post the head injury. And that I blew that life up in chasing, in search for a past that never was, in search for a youth that I thought I'd missed, doing it all crappy the first time. Yeah, and I wasn't ready to acknowledge my crone phase. So here I am, there I was back then, at 40, hooking up with a 42, I think. Yeah, 40 when I first met him, 42 when I made the first leap over with a younger guy to have a new marriage and try and start family number 2. I mean, mad, crazy. Why would, but it was all because I was in denial. I was in denial of my validity as a woman in my 40s. I was in denial of my validity to make decisions for myself as a single woman. I was scared. I was still bought into that whole story that, well, if I'm alone, if I'm single and on my own, well, then I won't have that support when I'm older. Well, I can tell you right now, that young man wasn't going to. He was like 27. Yeah, so there you go. This is me. It's all fine and dandy when we laugh about the cougars and being a cougar and all the rest of it. But when I can't say that I'd be suggesting marrying one of them. Life was very, yeah. It suddenly took on a whole lot of pressure, and it actually became really quite apparent how toxic the story out there in the community is about women and aging, and the pressure that is out there, conscious and subconscious, to be youthful. And so Annie talked about looking youthful and staying young, and all the rest of it. No, that's not my mission. My mission for my women over 40 is not about being young. It's not about looking young. It's not about staying young. It's not about competing with the youth. It's not about, reliving past days. It's about actually stepping into the fact that we are vitality and passion and juiciness, which leads me, as the perfect segue, which leads me into the chapter we're going to talk about, and I'm going to read from our Sacred Crone story time. Crones don't whine. The next chapter is Crones are juicy. And this is the whole point. Juiciness has nothing to do with youth. So all that talk out there that it seems to be in the traps for anyone over 40, it's talking about being young, staying young energy, look younger, be younger. No, fuck that. Literally, fuck that. No. Vitality has got nothing to do with youth. Wear your grey hair, allow your skin to wrinkle, put on weight, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Own the fact that we are entering a stage of our lives energetically and physiologically that is not the life of a 20-year-old. And the power that is in the energetic power that we have in this phase of our lives, that when we get to actually own it and not be ashamed of it and not deny it and not try and, hide it, it's astronomical. And it is our time. It is fully our time to finally go, what do I want? We've got enough run time under our belt to have made quite a number of mistakes, and so hopefully have learned from them. We've put everyone else first, and now it's our time. And the journey is an inward journey. The journey is a wisdom journey. That wisdom journey may take shape in the outside world through doing stuff. Maybe. That's your choice. That's up to you. So it might look like you marrying a toy boy if you felt like it. It might, or girl, whichever way you want to go. I've got to say, I've been finding that women our age are far more attractive than the men most of the time. You're looking out there in the dating world and the dating space out there and the dating apps. I've got to tell you, the women our age are magnetic and amazing and have done amazing things, and they're amazing people to know, and they're just so vibrant and attractive, and the men look like just dweebs, completely, utterly flaccid. So that's a lot to be said. That's at least in the dating apps. I'm not saying that might be the case everywhere else, but that's certainly what I'm seeing online in the dating apps. So there you go. If dating is what you want, maybe it's not. For me personally, at this point in time, it's not really. I'm actually really enjoying my own journey, and whether that includes bringing a partner into it of either persuasion, I don't know, but that's fine. We don't have to know. We don't have to know. And I love that. And I love that we just get to turn the journey inward, figure out finally what that little inner voice is and where it is and what it's telling us, and finding the courage to listen to it and having the humility to ask for help along the way. And that's what I'm here for. I'm not here to put something in you that isn't already there. You've already got the wisdom. It's already there. You're not broken. You don't need me to fix you. That's also not what I'm here about. What I hope I can do is that while you're navigating the practical world out there, so maybe you are trying to salvage your marriage, maybe you're trying to leave a marriage, maybe you're trying to get into another one, maybe you, like myself, have gotten to 40 and you don't have much financial security behind you, and you're looking for a way to do something in your life that you're passionate about, that also sets you up for retirement and beyond. Maybe you do have body issue concerns. Maybe your health isn't the best. Maybe you are in pain and are struggling with finding the joy in life when your body isn't playing nice with you. I know what that's like. And I also know how to find that joy, even if the body isn't playing nice with you. We say things, well, once when the body's nice, when I get that job, when I get that promotion, when I've lost that 20 kilos, when. It's not about when. It simply isn't about when. None of those things may change. They may change, and that's okay, but they may not. They don't have to. They don't have to. And here's the thing. Life is constantly changing. It's just often not changing the way that we think it should, and hence when we get all caught up in it. But life is changing. I am not in the same position I was a year ago. Nor are you. I'm not in the same position I was 20 years ago. Nor are you. So we don't have to keep living our lives according to the story of the past that we think that makes up who we are. Because we're not. We're not the stuff that's happened to us. We're not the stuff that's going to happen to us. And we're not the labels we give ourselves. And so what I'm here for is not to fix you, not to necessarily be talking about how to change things outside of you in your situation, because what I've noticed is that when you show up within your own wisdom in the present moment and you just release, relax into it, stop freaking fighting, When that happens, everything else does just kind of take care of itself. When you realize that you don't have to think of a solution ahead of time, all you have to do is show up in the present moment, willing to listen to your inner voice and be guided by it. Now, your frame of reference may be that that's God guiding you, divine guiding you, source, universal mind. Whatever works. I have been, that my own faith journey has had me crossing multiple frameworks to explain that. So whatever yours is absolutely yours, and nothing is right, nothing is wrong. What is yours. I've probably tread the path, so I could probably talk to you about it on that level if you want, but I'm choosing at this point in life to not label that in any particular way and just go, we are connected to something, a process and energy way bigger than us. It's all part and parcel of our existence as energetic beings. And so when we tap into that, when we allow ourselves to tap into what is already there, then the answers arise and we don't have to actually force anything. And then what happens is all that stuff that we thought was a problem takes on a different view. Some things fall away completely. Some things rectify themselves. Some things are practical problems that need a practical solution, like you're in an abusive marriage and you need to get to safety, like there's no food in the cupboard and you need to get some food to feed yourself and your family. There are practical problems out there. There are practical injustices out there, absolutely. So I'm not denying that there is a world and it's physical, and there is a physical world and there's stuff that happens. But most of what we consider as a problem isn't that stuff. It's the story we tell about that stuff. And that's that story that gets in the road of actually just dealing with the real stuff. And we only have to deal with the real stuff in the present moment when it's actually happening. And we don't have to pre-plan for it or dress rehearse it or have a response ready to go. When you're in need to fill that bowl, that empty bowl in that moment, having the bowl raised and ready to be filled and looking around for how in that moment to fill it, it will be filled. Not worrying about the next bowl, not worrying about and ruminating and reflecting on or getting scary thoughts about the bowls in the past that you are holding up waiting to be filled and all that sort of stuff. We get so caught up in the story, and we don't need to. Just know that your bowl, when raised up and ready, and you are in that moment ready, it will be filled one way or another. It may not be filled in the way that you think it should be filled. It may not even be filled in the way that you'd like it to be filled. But it will be filled. And so will the next moment. And so will the next moment. And it's the joy is getting to that stage, getting to that space where you can really, really feel that. It's not an intellectual thing. And so, yeah, what you hear from me talking to you now, you'll be hearing at it at this level. But when you work with me, I'm helping you get it from this level of intellectual, abstract, theoretical understanding, providing the support and the space of listening, and then pointing out to you where maybe your thinking is getting in the road of you allowing yourself to have the insight arise for the transformation to happen. Working with me, I'm not going to give you the insight. I can't pour it into you. And I'm not focused on the transformation or what that's going to look like either, because the transformation happens within itself. It unfolds in ways that we cannot imagine. And that's the joyous miracle of our existence. Transformation is a given. We don't know how it's going to happen, but how we show up for it, we do have some control over that. But not in the way that we've been told. It's not through managing your thinking, the content of your thinking and why you're thinking it and how you're feeling and why you're feeling, and stopping it and changing it. And so this is what I have. This is what I've been working on. This is what you kind of get when you're going to be working with me. And I'm excited by that. And so the fact that this has just come through a kind of messy chat right now, long-winded probably, not shiny, not pre-planned. And I'll find myself talking about this again in different ways, in shorter ways, and more pithy ways than before, than this time now. But this is where I'm at. So this is where I want to take you. So on that note, because I think I've probably been nattering away now for quite some time, let me just see, before I look at the story, have any of you been watching live? Because again, I haven't been sure if anyone's been watching this live. So according to my computer, I have been looking at I've been talking for an hour. So I will stop talking in a moment. I am going to read chapter 2. Okay, let me read chapter 2 when it comes back. There you go. So looking down, looking up, looking down. Again, whether I'm camera present perfect or that, I don't know. It doesn't matter. So crones are juicy. A crone is a juicy older woman with zest, passions, and soul. If you aspire to be one, the secret is to be yourself, warts and all, as I've been saying. While your mind, heart, and body still function well enough, and you appreciate being alive. Metaphorically, 3 phases of the moon, waxing full and waning, the 3 phases of the ancient goddess's maiden mother crone, and the 3 biological markers of menarche, menstruation, and menopause divide women's lives into a 3-act play. And so, yeah, the mistake I had as I was entering into my perimenopause, well, not menopausal yet, so I guess it was heading into the final act, instead of gracefully and excitedly and joyfully entering into my final act, I tried to relive Act 2 and have another shot at it. That's pretty much, and I think a lot of us are doing that. And a lot of the story, and not only are a lot of us hitting this age and going back to try Act 2 for a second time, see a do-over, see if we can do it better the second time. Some of us are starting Act 2 a lot later. So we're delaying having families and children and things, and then waiting till late 30s or 40s, or having them in our 40s, and then realizing that energetically it's a bit of there's a discordant energy going on. On one level, it's the time for the inner wisdom quest, yet we're actively focused on the outer caring and the raising of a young family, which is a very different energy. It's an outer focus. That outer focus, you know, this notion of, well, the empty nester and the kids are grown and they're out and they're having their life, and that, yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how it plays out for women who delay that to start families later in life, and then will they get to go on their wisdom quest journey while they're still physically able to do something about it? Or are they going to wait till they're 80 to finally do it? I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. But for me, I am saddened as I was by the 2 miscarriages at the time. And of course, you know, it's a loss and it's a grief. I will blatantly and without any shame acknowledge that I am grateful at 49 and single and still working on trying to re-secure myself somewhat financially, materially, and focus on a business and focus on my wisdom quest. I'm glad I don't have what would now be, I guess, a 4 and a 6-year-old and single and stuff now. I'm kind of glad that I don't have that. I'm glad to be that my 24-year-old daughter didn't make my mistakes. She's married very well to a lovely young man and they're doing their life together, and that's me now, and that I'm not raising little kids that are not even that's barely at school, and yeah, at 49. So yeah, got to say that I'm kind of happy that that's the case. So yeah, but that's what it is, being that we are now at the menopause. We are at the 3rd phase, the final act, so to speak. This is Act 3. The curtain will come up at the end of it. Sorry, no, it won't. Well, it will, actually, no. A curtain, instead of saying a curtain will go down, a curtain will go down on this life, on this plane of existence, but it will certainly come up to another plane of existence. And depending on your persuasion of faith persuasion, you may well say, well, it'll come down in this and then come up in another existence. So anyway, but in this form, in this shell where everything is working out in this way, the curtain will go down. In Act 3, you may pick up on threads of meaning from earlier phases of your life, which is what I've been doing, and find yourself absorbed in something new. There are completions and endings. Doors close and others open. Whatever the particulars, what makes life juicy is being deeply involved in your life. Yeah, so finally deciding to be present in it. All its blood and glory, all its ups and downs. Not be on some speeding driverless train, but actually be at the front and center of the roller coaster that you're on, that is life, and fully engaged, screaming all the way and laughing and vomiting and the whole thing. Yeah, be in your life. There are completions, their doors close and they open. Whatever the particulars, whatever makes life juicy, be involved. You may be a juicy crone who discovered how delicious solitude is. That's me, I'm loving my solitude. With a place and a life of your own. And only yourself to please. Yeah, it's me. You may be a juicy crone whose hearth and heart are welcoming of numerous people, whose life might even be a center of activity for a community. You may be a juicy crone who found a younger lover. Well, it's been there, done that. We won't do that again. You may be married to the right person, right, according to who you are and what you want in your life. You may be seeing the world as a tourist, as a pilgrim, as a Peace Corps volunteer. You may be reading and learning what you are interested in knowing. You may be an activist working at making a part of the world better. You may be in a creative phase of your life. You may love spending time with grandchildren or not, depending upon who they are as much as who you are, whether they exist. At the moment, I don't have grandchildren and I'm not rushing to be a grandmother. Others, including your own grandchildren, may think that you are inappropriate or aging disgracefully. whimsical or eccentric, because you are able to be authentic and not conforming to a stereotype. Or you may find yourself unexpectedly being a role model for women younger than yourself whose mothers fit the stereotypes. When I, being the author, Jean, Shanola Boland, when she wrote Goddesses in Older Women, Archetypes in Women Over 50, and I've got that book coming in the mail, yay, I was very much aware that crone was not an acceptable mainstream word for women over 50. And I indeed was speaking to someone who indeed embodied all the crone energy, but found that she didn't, I don't want to be considered a crone. I don't like the term. And I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to water that down. I'm not going to be wise women. I'm going to stick to the crone term and pushing it and being part of this movement to help reclaim the power of the word. Crone means is crown. It's the crowning stage of womanhood. This is a mantle to wear with pride. It's only the Disney wicked witches and all the rest of it. Well, no. Wicked old women witches. Yeah, we don't need to be fed that crap. It's all not true. So juicy crone, however, struck a chord, and it does. And that's we know the terminology. Oh, she's a dried up old woman. Well, she's now in menopause now. It's now in menopause, so she's dried up. Vagina's dried up. She's shriveled up. She's an old woman. She's an old crone. Yeah, well, no, I can tell it, hag, crone, those terms, and dried up and barren. Yeah, well, I'm telling you right now, we are entering a third act that is far from being dried up and shriveled up and barren. Maybe we are entering a phase where we can't pop out humans anymore, but that does not mean our womb energy and the micro universe within it and the chakra power creative energy is dried up. It's not like the little pilot light in the womb has gone out. It has not. It's just not going to be for producing humans, but it's for birthing our wisdom. And the fruits of that wisdom and how that shows itself, which in the outside world, if we choose to manifest it in the outside world and bring the formless into form. You don't have to, by the way. We live in a society, I want to just digress, we live in a society these days, again, it's the capitalist consumer society that we have, that really promotes an idea that wisdom is not wisdom for itself. Creativity isn't creativity for itself. That somehow we have to monetize everything and turn everything into an entrepreneurial business. And that if you're doing anything with your life that isn't for the purpose of making a bloody dollar, that then somehow it's a waste. No, it's not. No, it's not. You can go on your wisdom quest journey and not turn it into a freaking course, not turn it into a business, not manifest it in terms of form of any sort. If you want, you can study something for the sheer enjoyment of studying. You can learn a language and not speak it out in conversationally, but just for the art of learning it. You can learn a musical instrument and not turn up on stage or on film, live streaming to YouTube playing it. Not everything you do in life needs to have an end result, publicly consumed or making money. So please understand that. The juxtaposition of juicy and crone for women over 50, although she's saying 50, but I mean, the reality is we now understand with the menopause, is the perimenopause, or the hormonal shifts in our bodies that one of the markers of this third act can start a hell of a lot earlier than 50. So some are even in their 30s. So yeah. But she's been focused on the actual menopause by its biological marker. So that for her, her focus was 50 and beyond, but I've made it 40 and beyond. But the juxtaposition of these two words seem both a contradiction in term and a welcome possibility. Dried up and old, as I said, quite a common term and insult thrown about, were after all the more usual adjectives attached to a crone. Juicy brings to mind metaphors to do with moisture and electricity. In American slang, the positive meaning of juice implies being plugged into a source of power or energy, or having the ability to make things happen. The juice that truly vitalizes us is unconditional love, which is one source of energy that is never depleted. To the contrary, the more we give away, the more there is in nature. Vitality being alive. Notice vitality has nothing to do with being young, looking young, having a 20-year-old body, or trying to chase it through all means necessary. Vitality is not youth. So I really have a theme about this push for the women over 40 space, particularly health and well-being space, of marketing everything as youthful. We claim your youth. Look younger. No, fuck off. You don't want to be. No, vitality has nothing to do with youth. There are sick young people out there, okay? There are young people who haven't got healthy, vital and strong bodies. You know, so seriously, this notion that vitality and vigor and strength and passion and all that energetic stuff is for the youth is absolute utter bullshit. So no, don't try and be younger. Be who you are now. Embrace who you are now. Tap into the wisdom that is yours now. Don't try and be anything. You didn't miss out on anything. Believe me. And it's not worth trying to go back and relive it or do it a second way, the youth that you think that you missed out on while you were doing it. You didn't. You had it. It's done. The wisdom now is knowing that we get to keep moving forward, not go backwards. So screw the wanting to look younger messaging or be younger or feel younger. Bullshit. My 20s were filled with abuse, with chronic illness, with chronic pain, fear. Fuck, I don't want to go back to that. That's the last thing I want. So no, screw that, absolutely. And with me, that's not what's going to happen. We're not about the journey of being 20 again, doing it better the second time, or feeling younger. Feeling vital and passionate and aligned, absolutely. But that's got nothing to do with youth. So to be involved and engaged in life is a juicy proposition. Love the life you're in. Every juicy crone taps into a wellspring or a deep aquifer of meaning in her psyche. And this is it. This is the time. This requires the inner quest. It's the inner journey. That's where the wisdom is. It's not out there. It's not in moving the blocks out there and all the rest of it. Now, the truth of the matter is that in order to take the inner wisdom quest journey, absolutely, as Maslow's hierarchy of needs points out, for a lot of us, we are living, even those of us who aren't actually in a war-torn country or a country in famine or, you know, that kind of really, really obvious survival. We're not in a refugee camp. We're not on an asylum seeker boat at sea. We're not. We're not. We're not, at least for myself, I'm not a person of color in the United States, in fear of my life the minute I forget even stepping out on the street. Just gets me. You could be an actually tax-paying, hard-working citizen sitting in your own lounge room in the evening eating ice cream and get shot dead. So I mean, that stuff, that's all the survival stuff. That's all the survival stuff. Now the thing is, when you're in fear of survival, when you're in survival mode, it's very hard to find that space to go within. So that, again, there is a physical world out there. Again, we do need to fulfill our universal pact to ourselves and our being to not be in physical harm, and to address that. So for some, before you can start your inner wisdom quest journey, like the full that, you do need to get yourself out of harm's way. Now, what I've learned from being in harm's way and having to get out of it is that when you have the understanding of where our knowledge comes from, and it's not the story in our head, but it is what we plug into, and that it is available to us at any moment, that we don't have to get scared about making plans, and we don't have to get caught up looking in the past for answers. What happens in that is that when we do actually have to focus on a survival issue and sorting that out, the answer arises. We don't have to get caught up in all that sort of, well, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, all that story we tell ourselves. I mean, the biggest thing that kept me trapped in my 2 abusive marriages at the time was not finances, but the fear of finances. It wasn't a gun to my head. It was that basically I was caught up in, I was caught up in stories of worth. I was caught up in stories of expectations of, well, I need to give them an extra chance. I need to do this. What will people say? What does it mean? All that shit that we tell ourselves that prevent us from actually taking action. We know what action. Look, 99.9% of the time, we know what action we need to take. And we know it. We know that because we go out and ask questions of others for validation before making the decision. And we know. We don't need to ask for validation from other people. We don't have to ask permission to take care of ourselves and get ourselves out of harm's way. So secure oneself first. But also on top of the physical secure yourself, part of what is the difficulty of the system that we live under is that it perpetuates a level of fear thinking, of an illusory belief that we're in danger when we're not. So aside from, if you are in physical need, sort it out, take action in the present moment, put your hand up, ask for help, get yourself out of it, but get the help you need. But also address the story that you bring about it all. And understand that once the bear has been stopped in its tracks, it's no longer chasing you. So you don't have to keep acting in fear as if it's about to get you again. And that's kind of how a lot of us live our lives, in a perpetual state of heightened anxiety that we think, that has us in survival mode, that we think is real, but it really isn't. It's just the story we're telling ourselves. So finding the difference between the two is also part of what going on this wisdom quest journey with me is all about. It's trying to understand what is a real problem and how to show up and handle it, and what is just your thinking and the story you're carrying with yourself that you can finally let go of and stop freaking yourself out about. I look forward to our continued journey together, imperfect as it is. See you later. Bye.